Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Open Look. We are now the Open Look Sports, no longer just the Open Look Basketball. As always, I am John Halim, joined by Mr. David Hanna. Dave, welcome back.
Good to be back, man. Happy to be back.
Well, we wish it was in better circumstances. The reason we were able to get back logistically, as you guys probably are as well, we're social distancing. It's not the greatest of situations, but we at the end of the last iteration of the Open Look had the hardest time kind of setting up our schedules. We both work. We don't do this for a living. So now that we're all social distancing, we were able to set up the time to get on and make the show. And we figured that, this is as good a time as any to help you guys get your mind off of things going on right now. There's not a lot of positive news. There's not any sports to watch, really. So why not get on here and talk about something that we all love? Dave, how are you social distancing, sir?
I'm social distancing as best as I can. I don't work in an area that has 100 employees, let alone 5. So it's going out pretty well. And kids are at home. As you know, all schools are closed, and the country is going through a tough time. Everybody's trying to stock up. Everybody's trying to do stuff, and it's a pretty crazy moment for the world, really.
Yeah, and one thing I'm seeing throughout all of this, when we get into situations like this, we see the best in people like wanting to help each other and be kind to each other. We also see the worst in people, where like you got like all these dumb spring break college kids who are like thousands at a time at the beach. Like, folks, don't put yourself at risk. The longer that you fight this, the longer that you fight against this, the longer you're going to have to fight against this. Like, just stay home. Like, no one's asking you to be at home forever. Like, you're not going to jail or anything. Just, take a little time, stay at home, let this pass, and we'll be back to normal. And the longer that we fight that idea, the longer we're going to be stuck at home, and the longer you're going to be stuck with your kids, which, I don't have any kids, but Dave, you tell me, like, why does everybody not want to be stuck with their kids? Like, explain this to me.
It's a lot of work. It's homeschooling now. I've got to be the teacher. I've got to be the physical ed teacher. I've got to be lunch. I've got to be a whole bunch of things. So it's very trying, but we're getting through it. We're doing well.
Yeah, and folks, we're not going to sit here and run through all the names of people who have been infected. Like just right before we got on here, Marcus Smart was diagnosed. 2 of the Lakers players were diagnosed. So while you're watching this, that gives you kind of a timeline of when we're recording this. But like I said earlier, this is about getting people's minds off of things. We're going to get into sports. We're going to talk about sports because you don't have any sports to watch, which the only thing that's going on right now, Dave, is the NFL free agency, NFL transactions. Those of you who watched the basketball show, the Open Look Basketball, know that I wasn't the biggest fan of the NFL, and I kind of distanced myself from the sport because I just didn't have the time to sit around for 4 hours and watching a game every Sunday. And on top of that, my team was trash. I'm a Raiders fan, as you guys can tell, or not tell, but as you guys know. But I'm creeping back into it for you guys because I want to talk about it, and it's a fun sport to talk about. So Dave, the big news, Tom Brady, man. Tell us what your thoughts are on Tom Brady finally ending it in New England and going to Tampa Bay.
This reminds me of a certain young Kobe Bryant who at one point was defiant with his mentor and his coach, Phil Jackson. Things soured, things ended. Eventually they reunited, won 2 more titles together. I get all that. I think Bill and Tom just got to a standstill. They got to a point where we're not getting better. Certainly our wide receiver core isn't very good. We just don't see eye to eye. I'm 43 years old. I'm getting up in the age. I'm obviously very old, but I'm Tom Brady still, and I think I can still play and I can still do a lot of things. So I think a change of venue and a change of place for Tom is certainly a career move. I thought he would be a lifer New England Patriot, but maybe there was just some things that we don't know about that were behind the scenes that took place. And Bill and Pat and Bill and the Patriots organization said, okay, it's time to sever ties, and Tom felt the same way, and that was the end of that.
So let me also, before we move forward, usually our shows we have like notes and stuff like that before that we go through beforehand. This is just a conversation. Like, this isn't even a real show. Like, this is just shooting from the hip, saying what we think. And at some point we'd like to get you guys into the conversation. So before I go further, I just want to remind you guys to leave your comments below, what you guys think of, what Dave is saying, what I'm saying, what you guys think of this whole Tom Brady situation and any other situation we talk about. We're going to talk about Tom Brady. We're going to talk about other football stuff. We'll talk about other sports. This is a very unique version of our show. Moving forward, it's not going to really be like this. This is just us having a conversation and bringing you guys in on it. Here's where I go on this Tom Brady situation, though, Dave. There's two sides to this story, right? Or two. Moving forward, there's two sides we got to look at. Where does New England go from here, and where does Tampa Bay go from here, right? So I wanna start with New England on that end. So here's what I'm thinking: that offense was not very good. We can all agree that it was not set up to the best of its ability to protect Tom Brady, who is not a mobile quarterback. He's 43 years old. We don't see 43-year-olds playing any sport very often, other than maybe like golf. So a smash mouth sport like football, not being able to protect a guy who's not very mobile, that's a tough situation to put him in. On top of that, he didn't really have a lot of receiving depth, didn't really have much to throw to. Who are you going to plug in to that situation now that will succeed? We're going to look at both of these teams. Jameis Winston, famous for not being able to produce very much with his limitations in Tampa. They actually both had, he and Tom Brady, they both had the same quarterback rating last year. So that's something to think about. Who are you going to bring in, or are you going to go with what you have to try to get you back to the top as the New England Patriots? We know that Bill Belichick is a master of success. Are we going to see that it was the system that made that team successful? Or are we going to see that Tom Brady was so talented and so good as that team's quarterback that they're going to fail without him completely? And I wanted to get your take on that first.
I think New England is, first and foremost, has to figure out who is going to be their quarterback. Remember, they traded Jimmy Garoppolo 2 seasons ago. The man, Jimmy Garoppolo, almost won the Super Bowl, this past Super Bowl, if you recall. And a lot of people were kind of questioning why that was there. Why did that happen? I think the goal was Tom Brady stays longer and plays longer with New England. And really the chances for Jimmy Garoppolo were starting to simmer down. And he wasn't going to get an opportunity to kind of play. And this is almost reminds me of Aaron Rodgers. You know, there was a time where Green Bay didn't know how long Brett Favre, if it was going to be a Brett Favre choice or it was going to be, Aaron playing. And eventually, they essentially parted ways with the great Brett Favre, who ended up going to the Vikings and going to the Jets to end his career. This is a very similar situation. You know, you had a guy that was in the wings, ready to go. They put all the faith in Tom Brady. They traded Garoppolo away, and now I think they're going to need to be searching for a quarterback. This might be a master reset for the New England Patriots, who have been very good since 2000 and on. I mean, we're talking about 20 years of excellence here.
So when you say that, are you saying that Tom Brady had more to do with that team's success than Bill Belichick? Because I'm looking at the track record here. There was a point in time when Tom Brady was hurt, and Bill Belichick got that team to the playoffs with Matt Castle. And when we saw Matt Castle elsewhere, he fell on his face, and he was terrible.
You make a great point. You absolutely make a great point. I'm not gonna knock it. I mean, Matt Castle ended up at Kansas City, I believe, and did not fare well, and his career fizzled out. But I mean, that was for a full season. It could be the system. We're gonna find out. I mean, is it systematic? Is it like the San Antonio Spurs, where it's systematic, or is this really pure talent of Tom Brady? We'll find out.
I want to say that it was probably an amalgamation of both. I want to say that they both had something to do with it, but we saw that kind of flash in the pan with Matt Castle and the hype that surrounded him. There was a huge market for Matt Castle, if you remember. And same with Jimmy Garoppolo. We saw flashes when Tom Brady spent time out that everybody came calling for Jimmy Garoppolo. That's going to be the one of the more interesting facets of the season. But you also, with the Patriots, need to look at what's happening on the defensive end for them, because they're losing some of their defensive, like some of the more important guys on the defensive side of the ball. Kyle Van Noy, for instance, he's leaving in free agency. They don't have a lot going on. And I think this is going to be the ultimate test of Bill Belichick's genius. What's your over-under? Let's say over-under 6 wins for the Patriots. Are you over or under on that number?
I think 6 is fair. I think 6 and 10, or if they're moving it to 17 games this year, 6 and 11. I think 6 is good. I think you're right at it, and it's a division now that's being taken over by the Buffalo Bills. The Bills have been pretty good. Don't really have to worry about the Jets. I believe Indianapolis is in the same one. Maybe, I'm not sure. I don't think so. But in any case, 6 wins is just about right for this team. Unless they get some wow quarterback, I'm going to go with 6 wins. And I have no idea who they're going after. And rumor has it that they'll trade for Andy Dalton. I don't see Cam Newton as a good fit. I don't see Jameis Winston as a good fit. Maybe they trade for David Carr. Maybe he can be systematic. He hasn't been very good with the Raiders after he signed.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but David Carr's been retired for a few years. It's Derek Carr who you're talking about.
Hey, David, Derek, they both had the same career. So I mean, David's was a lot shorter, and he played with a terrible offensive line. But John Gruden can't seem to get through the other Carr, Derek Carr. And,
well, I don't think that's fair, because Derek Carr had 70% completion and career high in yards and touchdowns, career low in interception. They had a good year last year.
Look, this is a Raiders segment right now, because I'll tell you this much. They signed Marcus Mariota, and they didn't sign Marcus Mariota for the fun of signing Marcus Mariota. They
signed him for competition. And when we found out that we're not going to get carried away on the Raiders at this point. We're going to talk about that later. But Marcus Mariota, to me, screams that John Gruden is trying to duplicate Rich Gannon. Very similar skill set to Rich Gannon. A mobile quarterback who can make pretty good short throws, doesn't have the biggest arm, but he can make complicated throws. And coming out of Oregon, we thought he was capable of understanding complicated offense. With John Gruden's offense is notoriously, it's wordy, there's a lot of terminology, and it's notoriously difficult to learn. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But let's stick with this Patriots and Buccaneers thing going on here. So one guy he was cut today, that I told you when I thought would be a good fit would be Joe Flacco. He failed his physical, though. We don't know why he failed his physical, but Denver cut him today. I actually think that he would be a good fit for somebody who's kind of got that fire to resurrect everything. I think it would be a good fit. I see you shaking your head.
Joe Flacco is done. Joe Flacco had his time in the light. He won his Super Bowl. He hasn't lived up to par whatsoever. He did not do well in Denver, and Denver's situation is not the best situation to succeed better. They also have a lot of question marks on the defensive and offensive side of the ball. But I don't think Joe Flacco is the guy. I think you can get a guy like Andy Dalton. You trade for him, maybe give up a 5th-round pick, 6th-round pick, get an Andy Dalton in there. He understands. He's got a high IQ. Again, Dalton was put in to fail at Cincinnati. Cincinnati does not have a good system whatsoever. They have one of the best receivers when healthy in A.J. Green. And so I think Andy Dalton might fit the mold. He's young enough. He's not mobile, but he's young enough to do a lot of things. I mean, you could argue Cam Newton has a great arm and is mobile, but he can't stay healthy either. But just don't see Cam understanding what Bill Belichick wants to do, neither Jameis Winston. And so either draft a quarterback, move down in the draft. There's some good quarterbacks that are coming out. You're not going to get 1, 2, or 3, but if you get pick number 7 or 10, you have a shot at getting a young quarterback. You groom him. You turn him into a Kyler Murray. You turn him into the very, very good quarterback in Baltimore, your city. You should be cheering the Baltimore Ravens, in my opinion. I love everything about this team, but
I tried, but I mean, I'm just a loyal guy, man. I mean, here's the thing: I've been through so many 4-11 seasons that, like, to just up and leave. And I even posted on Facebook, for those of you who follow me on Facebook, I even posted that I was looking for a new team. And I had kind of almost settled on the Ravens because I love Lamar Jackson. But
I mean,
I just couldn't do it. I'm a loyal guy, and I can't do
Lamar
that.
Jackson, I had him on fantasy this year, and that man just racked up so many points. He was
Oh,
fantastic.
he's a killer.
I think the NFL needs more mobile quarterbacks in the league. I think it's now transitioned to where the quarterback needs to be a guy who can run and get some yards if he can't throw down the field. Because as you can see, and I'm sure you're going to mention this, but I'm going to bring it up anyways, running backs are starting to be very, very, I don't know, slim? Because Gurley today got waived. Freeman from Atlanta, he got waived. Gordon, I think, from the Chargers got waived. So you've got a plethora of really good running backs, but there's something going on. And I know these guys want to get paid. I know Ezekiel Elliott got paid really, really well, but you need a quarterback that can run, and maybe the running back isn't going to have to carry the load to run a lot during the games. I think that's where the game's at.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And when you bring that up, if we're talking about the draft, there's a guy who's not getting a lot of buzz, who I think actually would be a good fit with Bill Belichick because of his personality and his makeup. What do you think of Jalen Hurts with the Patriots?
I think Jalen Hurts is a nice football player, but I believe that one of the knocks on Jalen Hurts when he was with obviously the one of the biggest programs in Alabama, he was with Alabama,
Yeah,
and he just didn't fit the mold. They ended up getting Tua. His name is Tua Tagliabue or something like that.
yeah. Who's going to go about top 10? Yeah,
but he can't stay healthy either. But he probably will go top 10, sure. But Jalen Hurts moved and he did very well. But if you watch the the championship game for him, or the things leading to the playoffs and stuff like that, he wasn't solid. He wasn't great. And I just don't know if he can study enough to become the type of quarterback that I think Bill Belichick needs the guy from Syracuse, the long-haired kid. I don't know his name, but I'm sure you can look it up. But they need somebody like that. They need someone who's got a high IQ, can throw the ball, can study film, can study what needs to be done, and lo and behold, I think they'll work out. But so I don't see them getting that. I think you got to settle for Andy Dalton, tank a couple of years, get a really good quarterback. He'll be the future. And, he can end up being like the Kansas City quarterback who took over after Alex Smith took over and won a Super Bowl and did everything. So, it could very well be like that.
I'm trying to look up who you're talking about here. College football is not really my thing, except for the really big names. You're talking about is his name Rich Barnes?
Sorry, not Syracuse, Clemson. I apologize.
They both were orange.
It's Trevor Lawrence, Clemson quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. He's the type of guy that Bill Belichick needs. And that's how he's going to – and he'll ride him for the next 10, 15 years and replace him with somebody else, if Bill Belichick, of course, wants to stay in the game that long.
He's getting up there in years. I don't know how old he is, but here, we'll figure it out. Hey, Siri, how old is Bill Belichick?
Bill Belichick is 67 years old.
Yeah, he's got his, may God give him as many years as he can. But I know he's grooming his son. His son's on staff, so maybe his son takes over and has the same smarts as Bill does. So, but you got to remember, Bill Belichick failed with the Cleveland Browns before he got the Patriots job. So
that's everybody's failed with the Cleveland. The Cleveland Browns need Jesus Christ and the 12 disciples to do anything. That's who will fix the Cleveland Browns. But let's look at the other side. We talked about the Patriots long enough here. How exciting is the NFC South going to be with Drew Brees and Brady coming to the mix down there?
That's going to be really. That is just it's just so exciting. How about having two Hall of Fame quarterbacks go at it twice a year? That's just awesome. You couldn't have asked for better than that.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a good situation there. My question about this Tampa Bay move is that O-line good enough to protect Tom Brady? Because you need him to be on his feet. Otherwise, he's pointless, right? You're flushing $30 million down the toilet Well, actually, I'll take that back. Just putting butts in seats, he's going to pay for himself. But that's a tough situation, right? That's the whole crux of this argument. Is Tom Brady going to be successful if he doesn't have a good O-line?
Well, you brought up a very point not too long ago. We were having conversations about this. Tom Brady could be making a money move here. He absolutely could say, you know what, I'm going to Florida, no tax, 30 million, 35 million a year. I put the butts in the seats. They make a lot of money. If we succeed, we do. If we don't, oh well. I have a Hall of Fame career anyways. I'm probably the best quarterback of all time. So I don't really care. I'm trying to cash in at the end of my career, play a year, two, whenever Giselle tells me time's up or my body can't take it anymore. And, I walk out 60 million rich, 70 million rich. Why not? I don't see the problem.
Yeah, he's definitely got more receiving options. That's for sure. I mean, you look at those guys. He's compared to what he had last year. I mean, which I think that kind of magnifies the issue when we were talking about Jameis Winston, where he had these weapons, but he wasn't able to do anything with them really. So that kind of, I think when you look at that, the market for Jameis Winston, kind of going off a tangent here, that's going to be interesting to see because, like I said earlier, same quarterback rating. The rating-wise, numbers-wise, they weren't too much difference between the two. Jameis Winston was throwing pick sixes like they were going out of style, but it's going to be a very different way of playing for that team because Tom Brady doesn't make plays with his feet the way that Jameis Winston did. He's a very stationary guy. So how do you see that offense playing out?
I think they're going to be fine. When I look at their lineup, they've got some guys that can protect them. They should be okay. If they're going to ask Tom to release the ball, 2 seconds after receiving it, 3 seconds into receiving it because that O-line isn't as good as it needs to be, he'll do it. I think we're going to find out the greatness of Tom Brady. He's really put himself out. He was in the system for a long time. Tim Duncan didn't mess with the system, retired as a San Antonio Spur. Tony Parker messed with the system, didn't have a very good ending whatsoever. Manu Ginobili stayed in the system. Again, same thing. Kobe Bryant had systems all over the place, so we can't even talk about him. And Dirk Nowitzki, he went through. I mean, he had Rick Carlisle for a good portion of his career and Don Nelson, and he did very well. It's a very good systematic thing. So some players can do really well in systems, some players can't, and we're going to find out how good Tom Brady truly is. Very similar to what happened to Joe Montana. And Joe Montana showed how great he is. I mean, with the 49ers, he won with Bill Walsh and racked up a whole bunch of Super Bowls with the 49ers, went to the Kansas City Chiefs, had a very good career, believe it or not. I mean, he was still very solid. So find out how good Tom Brady really is.
Well, I'm thinking of another comparison because we say that Brady's the greatest of all time, right? So are we talking about Chicago Bulls Michael Jordan? Or are we talking about Washington Wizards Michael Jordan? Well, two different guys. So
Tom Brady could end up being Michael Jordan of the Wizards. I mean, it's very possible. Right? You're talking about the guy at the end of his career. I mean, it's tough. It's tough to say that the greatness of Tom Brady will be that. But I mean, we always talk in the NBA, Michael Jordan is the best player in the history of basketball. Nobody argues that. Everybody says number one, Michael Jordan. And then it becomes a trickle-down effect, and you don't know who's 2, 3, 4, and 5. So Tom Brady, for sure, I think he's up there as one of the greatest of all time. His 6 rings certainly prove that. He beat a very good Rams team in his last Super Bowl. And so I think Tom Brady has already cemented himself. He's probably going to be the Wizards, Michael, for at least the next 2 seasons or so, and that's about it. And I think he'll call it a career.
So let's say Tom Brady strolls into Tampa, which I love Tampa, actually. You ever been to Tampa?
I have. It's extremely it's tough in the summer and it's terrible in the winter.
Exactly. But he walks into Tampa Bay. So a lot of people were saying this. They were saying that he left the AFC so that he could avoid running into the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. Let's look at the division he's in. He's in the same division as the Saints, Drew Brees, He's got the Falcons in his division, who nobody's talking about because of this whole hype with him and Drew Brees. Falcons are not chopped liver. That's a good team. The Panthers, let's see what happens there. He's going to have to get through that division to make it to the playoffs in the first place. Okay?
I mean, look, if I were to look at it, he's got the 49ers, his buddy Garoppolo. He's got the Cowboys. He's got the Bears. And my brother would love that we mentioned something about the Bears. He's a huge Bears fan. Don't ask me why. The Green Bay Packers are still legitimate as long as Aaron Rodgers is on that team. He's got the Seattle Seahawks that he's going to have to deal with. Got the New Orleans Saints, the Eagles. I mean, it's tough. Look, the NFC is tough. I'm not going to lie to you. He didn't go from rosy to something better than rosy. So, I mean, either way, the NFL has become very, very challenging. But yeah, I probably want to avoid Kansas City Chiefs as much as I can as well, because I think they're going to run the show for quite some time.
Well, let's throw out this question. You got to win one game. Who you putting at quarterback? Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady?
Today, it's Patrick Mahomes. It's not even Tom Brady. Tom Brady very soon is going to have Peyton Manning type numbers that he had towards the end of his career with Denver. I mean, he was able to win one title with Denver in the Super Bowl, but his numbers are going to be. I mean, you just compared him to Jameis Winston. We know Jameis Winston isn't good. So Jameis Winston and Tom Brady almost having identical numbers. That's not a good sign for anything. And that's Jameis Winston with a really good receiving core and Tom Brady with a really terrible receiving core. So I really want to see how it changes. I want to know if it's going to get exciting or not. I still think Tampa Bay is going to win 10 games. I have them over under 10 games. I think they can easily win 10 games. They had an opportunity to make the playoffs last year. Didn't do it. But with a guy like Tom Brady, maybe they have a shot. They have a good shot. I don't think they get past the divisional round, but they're not getting to the Super Bowl. It's going to be almost impossible for them to do that. But I think 10 games is very fair for Tom Brady-led Buccaneers team.
I kind of disagree with you that it's impossible for them to make the Super Bowl. I don't have much faith in the Cowboys, who you mentioned. Because you're looking at Dak Prescott. They're not paying him, or at least now they're not. They got the franchise tag on him.
Man wants 30. Well, the guy wants $35 million plus a year. So I mean, come on.
We're talking about a difference of $2 million, Dave.
No, but I'm telling you right now, because whatever he sets the bar for, Patrick Mahomes should be getting 5 times, 10 times as much of whatever Dak Prescott wasn't exciting. He wasn't great. Ezekiel Elliott was great. Dak Prescott, he's an okay quarterback. I can name a few quarterbacks that are better than him. So for him to try to get the most money at QB, which is a very, very trying position, I think he should settle for the $30 million that he's going to get, call it a day, play with the Cowboys, and that's it. Because I don't think Jerry Jones is going to pay him that significant amount of money to keep him.
Okay. I don't know enough about the dynamics there.
Let alone anybody in the league that's going to want to pay Dak Prescott.
Well, that's the thing. So with the franchise tag, he's going to get between 31 and 33 million. And if he wants 35, here's what if you're the Cowboys, you got to look at the alternatives. I don't know what the dynamics are of that relationship between him and Jerry Jones, because with Ezekiel Elliott, that got nasty for a little bit. I don't know what it looks like with Dak Prescott. Players don't like getting franchise tagged. They want to know that you're devoted to them, that you are committed to them for the future. When I'm looking at this situation with Dak Prescott, we're talking about a difference of about $2 million. And let's say they play out the year and they franchise tag him again, that number goes up. And it just doesn't make sense if you're the Cowboys to keep paying over the odds for him. You can just get him at the number he's willing to play for.
Here's the thing, John. I can franchise tag him 3 years in a row if I wanted, and then call it a day. This guy.
But you're paying this. You're paying more to do that.
I get that part. If they want to go heavy, 3 years of a 5-year deal for 3 years, pay him a lot of money, and then the last 2 years very minimal, I say do that. But I don't think Dak Prescott wants that. I think Dak Prescott wants as much guaranteed money. You know how the NFL is way different than any other sport. they care about guaranteed money. He can sign $130 million deal and have 80 million or 70 million his guaranteed 70 million. I think the numbers are about the guarantee. I think that's what Dak Prescott wants. He wants the guaranteed money over a 5-year period. And I don't think Jerry Jones believes too much in the Dak Prescott leading the way and making that happen. So,
All right.
And they've got a coach in Mike McCarthy who coached a guy named Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers drove Mike McCarthy out because he just couldn't stand him anymore. But Mike McCarthy brought a Super Bowl and brought a lot of greatness to Aaron Rodgers. So, again, Mike McCarthy with Dak Prescott, we don't know how that's going to work out either.
So going back to Tom Brady now that you bring that point up, how do you think that dynamic with Bruce Arians is going to work out?
Well, Bruce Arians is notorious for not being an offensive-minded coach. So I don't know. I mean, look, Bruce Arians got the Cardinals to the Super Bowl. Had Larry Fitzgerald, and was it him? No, it wasn't him. Sorry, it wasn't him. But Bruce Arians, he's been in Indianapolis before, didn't work out. He went to the Cardinals, didn't work out. He's now with the Buccaneers. I don't know. Offensively, they weren't good, and they have a lot of tools and a lot of things. So I don't know. I don't know if Tom Brady is going to work with Bruce Arians or not, but I think Bruce Arians is going to kind of let Tom Brady do whatever he wants.
Well, and going one further with that, the offensive coordinator, Byron Leftwich, came into the league and was out of the league within Tom Brady's career. If I'm not, did he come in while Tom Brady was playing? I think he did, right?
Yeah, he was. And Byron Leftwich was actually a backup quarterback for the New England Patriots. So it all works out.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to be kind of that LeBron James dynamic where it's like, you know what? Let Tom call the shots. When you get LeBron calls the shots. I can see that. And Tom Brady's forgotten more about being successful in this league than anybody will ever learn. So I kind of got to run with the benefit of the doubt there, especially Bruce Arians. If he has the self-awareness to know that he's not an offensive mind, then I think they're best off there. We talked about the Cowboys a little bit. Who else are you seeing making a big shift right now? Oh, you know what? Here's who I want to talk about. That DeAndre Hopkins trade. Please explain to me the logic here, because I can't see it and I can't find anyone else who does.
I'm at a loss for words. And what Michael Irving said on ESPN, where I guess Hopkins has a whole bunch of baby mamas, which I don't want to get into, but apparently they didn't like that too much in Houston. Bill Bryant, I guess, is a iron fist and traded him for a washed running back and a couple of picks. I don't know. I don't even know how to put it into words for you when you trade one of the best wide receivers in the game, and Stephon Diggs gets 5 picks in return to go to the Bills. So I will never understand that deal.
Well, here's what I'm also not from a business perspective. Like, if you saw that you weren't able to get much of a return for him, you don't even know when you're going to play games again. Like, why not just wait on it? Like, did they have that much distrust for each other? Did they have that much disdain for each other? Like, does anybody know what that was like behind closed doors? And what did O'Brien do to earn that kind of panache and power in that organization? Because they haven't won anything. So, like, it sounds to me like he's running it like Bill Belichick. He doesn't have Bill Belichick's resume. So,
well, look, like he drafted Deshaun Watson. That was huge. It's Deshaun Watson, right?
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson, and that guy can play. And so he Bill O'Brien is not a bad coach. He's a good coach. He's good for the Texans. Got him into the playoffs. Got some steam. Did a lot of nice things. Fortunately, they ran into Kansas City Chiefs and lost that one. So, but we'll see what Bill O'Brien does. But getting rid of your best receiver, that's very questionable. I don't even know how to begin to tell you, but he should have treated this like he was trading Anthony Davis for a lot of picks and some really nice return, and he didn't do that.
Well, it's kind of part of a pattern, right? Because when they traded Jadeveon Clowney, they didn't get a huge return for him either that one would have expected. So
David Clowney didn't really work out over there either. I mean, he just didn't fit in the scheme. So they need to get rid of him. So his numbers were down a good chunk.
Well, here's where I'm going with that, though, because I said this way back last year when we were talking about Tom Thibodeau being let go from Minnesota. I'm not a big fan of a coach being the GM. That does not work more often.
Let alone the owner being the GM isn't a good idea either. So.
Well, that's true. Being a Raiders fan, I can attest to that. Where we had Al Davis running the show till he died. Basically,
don't worry. Davis Jr. is running it the same way. Don't worry.
No, he's handed the reins over to John Gruden and Mike Mayock. I'm satisfied as a Raiders fan with the decision-making process, at least. And our draft last year is probably the best draft in the league. Everybody who came in day one, with the exception of Clelin Ferrell, who came on towards the end a little bit, did really well. But yeah, going back to the Houston trade, eventually at some point when you don't have the resume to back it up, that ice below your feet gets a little thin and you eventually fall through. And I'm thinking that if Bill O'Brien can't put together a really good run this year, that leash is going to get a lot shorter and he's not going to have much room to play with anymore. Do you agree that he might be on thin ice if this doesn't work out?
I think you're right. I look, they have enough talent to get it done, and if he's the one that drove out Hopkins out of there, he's definitely on the hottest seat in the NFL.
All right, so let's look at the flip side of that trade. Arizona's now got some weapons for Kyler Murray. They've got 4 legit receivers there. Is that another set of competition for Tom Brady on his way to the Super Bowl?
They could be. They could very well be. It's all on their defense, and if they can protect Deshaun Watson. So
Kyler Murray, you mean?
Huh?
Kyler Murray, you mean?
Kyler Murray, sorry. Kyler Murray, if they can protect Kyler Murray, absolutely. They've got the right coach. They've got the right system. They could very well, make a good run. I mean, they're in a very tough division altogether, but they have a very good shot of doing something. It's going to be tough to kind of sneak in that NFC. So,
who do you think is doing the best job so far this offseason?
You know what? I hate to say it, man. I really hate saying this.
Let me hear it.
I really, really, really hate saying this, but I think the Raiders have done exceptional in this offseason. They have gotten some guys who've got a headstrong, high IQ, systematic, they will fall into John Gruden's lap type of players. The Raiders are going to the Raiders outside. It's unfortunate they're with the Kansas City Chiefs. It really is. But when I look at the Broncos and Chargers, they're not going anywhere. So the Raiders should be making some major steps towards getting to where they need to get to. And they almost had a shot at getting into the playoffs last year too. Started off real slow and started racking up games. So the Raiders 100% probably did exceptionally well. I would say the Cardinals too, which we touched on. Watson automatically changes that team. And if they go get themselves a really good running back, which there are a lot of, I like Devonta Freeman a lot. I'm still shocked that the Falcons got rid of him. He would be a great fit in Arizona. You put him with Kyler Murray and Hopkins, that's a triple threat that will kill the NFL. I mean, they will destroy you day in and day out on offense. So they go get themselves one of those really good running backs. They're going to be very, very good. So I think the Cardinals have done well. Raiders have obviously done well. I think the Saints are still – I think Drew Brees is going to give it one last hurrah and try to make this happen again. Those are the teams. I mean, those are the ones that really made – and the Ravens. I mean, the Ravens shored up their defense to get better. They got another very good cornerback. So the Ravens and Kansas City, that's what everybody wants to see.
I think that would be a great AFC championship game. But I'm going to have to say 3 words. Just win, baby.
Because Oh
Because the
God.
commitment to excellence is back.
Too bad. It's too bad we're not having this conversation 2 years ago. That'd be all over you because I am a homer. I know all of our audience knows that I'm a homer. And I only go for the varsity teams. I don't go for the JV teams here in LA. And the Rams are the varsity team, but I think they're about to change things around, and things are going to be a little more difficult in Ram Nation. So can't argue too much there.
Does anyone in LA, like I didn't live in LA when the Chargers moved there, but does anyone in LA even acknowledge the Chargers?
No. The Chargers are always on the road no matter what. They play 16 games on the road. There's no question about it.
Does anybody like even acknowledge them? Like you can probably get like $20 Chargers tickets.
No, I'm going to tell you something. The Chargers should have made a big play for Tom Brady. Don't offer him 35. Don't offer him 40. Don't offer him 45. Offer him above 45 million. Get butts in the seats. Get LA fans to turn, because LA fans can turn. Outside of their Lakers and Dodgers, they won't turn on anybody, no matter what. But in football, you can easily change some Rams fans into Charger fans. You get Tom Brady here, then you had something. But Tom Brady looked at exactly that situation with the Chargers. Not a very, not an incredible team, not a good offensive line, not a good defense for sure. Melvin Gordon's gone. They don't really have much going on. I know they're going into a new stadium, but he would be bound to fail with the Chargers. He would win about 5-6 games with the Chargers, even with the great Tom Brady over there. So, but I think the Chargers should have 100% made him the highest paid quarterback and did everything in their power to bring him.
Does Dean Spanos strike you as the guy to fork out that kind of money to bring somebody to the team?
Look, you're getting into a brand new stadium, the SoFi Stadium, which is incredible. And when you come here in LA and you're landing in LA, you see that big old stadium. That thing is incredible. So, hey, invest in 2 years. Have some people switch over. They're not good. I'm sorry to say it. They're just not. They're not going to be good this year either. I have no idea who's going to play quarterback for them. Tyshawn Taylor is the guy that they have in line, and he's terrible. So
Tyrod Taylor is his name.
Whatever. He's so insignificant. I don't even remember his name. It doesn't matter.
So here's a fun question for you. Who's the worst owner, Dean Spanos or Dan Snyder?
I think Dan Snyder wins. But Dan Snyder has a chance. If Rivera turns out to be the coach that I think he is, which is he's pretty good.
He's a very good coach.
If he turns out to do well, then Dan Snyder's a smart man. But for the longest time, Dan Snyder should go next to the former Clippers coach and have dinner together because they knew how to ruin their teams all the way through.
You're talking about the owner, right? Not the coach. You said coach.
I'm talking about the owner. Yeah, no, the owner. If you recall,
whose name we shall not even mention.
Yeah, we're not gonna even talk about him because.
But I think I don't even think he has that kind of equity here in DC. The fans in DC hate Dan Snyder so much. Like usually, you'll find.
Can you tell the fans in who are watching where the Washington Redskins play?
They play in Maryland. For now, they're trying to find a new stadium. But here's the thing. Usually, you'll find an owner that will have like Al Davis, right? Among Raiders fans, he had equity, right? We won Super Bowls with him, and he was one of the pioneers of the game, right? He was responsible for the NFL one of the people responsible for the NFL as we knew it. He had some equity, so as bad as the Raiders got, he still had some equity with the fans where there were some people defending him. Out here in DC, man, you would be hard pressed to find a single person. If you asked 100 people on the street what they thought of Dan Snyder, I'm pretty sure all 100 of them would tell you horrible things. There is not a person I can think of that will tell you something good about that, man. It's crazy. And right up the road, you've actually got one of the best owners in the Bishottis who, they're running the Ravens flawlessly.
Wait, you don't like the Pittsburgh Steelers owner? Is it
who? What does that have to do with it?
I'm sorry. Wrong team. You don't like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers owners?
I know where you're going with this, and no, because that's another case where so here's where Dave is going with this. He knows that I'm a big Manchester United fan. the Glazers, who own Manchester United, also own the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You'll find that in England they protest the Glazers. The chants before January in that stadium were getting so toxic. Like the chief executive of the team had his house vandalized. Like, sports is taken to a different level out there in the UK. When you're talking about soccer, these people are like, this is their ethnicity. Like that, it's their race. That's their religion. When you're talking about it doesn't even compare out here. All right, when you go to like Staples Center and half the crowd is on their phone taking selfies, saying, "Hey, I'm at Staples Center,"
Okay.
it's not the same over there.
You bring up a good debate. If you had to pick all of sports, the worst owner in all of sports, we're talking about the NHL. You probably don't know much about the NHL. I don't know too much outside of my Kings. And baseball and basketball and the NFL. If you had to pick one owner that's absolutely the most terrible owner in sports, who would you pick? I know who I have.
I think in American sports, you got to go with Dan Snyder.
I totally disagree with you. Go up the interstate a little bit from where you live and head to New York, and there's this certain guy.
I think you're onto something there.
Last name Dolan.
You are right on with James Dolan. The memes that you are seeing these days about this guy. Wow. Yeah, I think you that's like, oh man, that is a very close race.
By far, there's really, I mean, when you have problems with the number one fan of the New York Knicks, and you've already humiliated one of the New York Knicks' favorite players in Charles Oakley, and now you start trouble with Spike Lee, and Spike Lee has to go on ESPN and call you out that you're a terrible owner. You by far are the worst owner in basketball. Look, they haven't done anything. They haven't done anything in 20 years, I'll tell you that much. So he's by far the worst owner in the game, all of the games. Dan Snyder is a very close second or third to that whole thing. So there's no question about that.
Now, when we have this discussion, though, when we say worst owner, are we talking about results on the field or results on the court? Or are we talking about the health of the organization that they're running? Are we talking about, so for instance,
the health and the running of the organization go together, because if you don't have a healthy front line, a nice running organization, you're not going to get a nice return for it. So if you're all over it's almost like living at home. If you got two parents who just don't see eye to eye, kids aren't going to and they see them arguing all the time. They're probably not going to be very well. They're not going to be happy. They're not going to achieve the goals that they need to achieve when they're at school. So it's almost like a broken home that these players are living in, and there's no way they can succeed. I mean, talk about, if we were to go back to the NBA, talk about the Knicks offseason. It was terrible. Terrible. It's the worst thing in the world. James Dolan is a mess. He's got a revolving door at coach. Who's next?
Yeah, but again, you can say that the Redskins have a revolving door at head coach, and it looks like he finally got rid of Bruce Allen, but he stuck with him far too long, right? So you're sitting here. I mean, you're looking at action versus inaction.
When you've got an owner who doesn't really understand the metrics of football, which Dan Snyder does not. He is a businessman. He is not a guy who understands all of football. So what he thinks is, I bring in a Hall of Fame guy. I bring in a guy who looks like he's smart. I bring in someone who understands analytics, blah, 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 blah. But he knows nothing about football. So he's going to – it's almost the same twofold with James Dolan. He knows nothing about basketball. He knows zero about basketball. Doesn't know what he should put on there, how it should be done, what works, how it works, nothing. They're just really terrible at managing their teams. But maybe Dan Snyder has a chance. If Ron Rivera turns out to be great, maybe he has a shot at it.
One thing I will say about Dan Snyder, if you look at some of the things that he's done on paper, like, they look like a good idea at the time. Like I don't know of many people who were upset with hiring Mike Shanahan, right? I don't know if many of people who were upset about drafting Robert Griffin, who was for the first year or so, I mean, gangbusters, did a great job. Him and Mike Shanahan, they got to the playoffs and the wheels just fell off. I think you look at some of the moves on paper. I mean, and my Redskins fans will disagree, but yeah, on paper, I think ahead of whatever transpires after those moves, they look okay. And every now and then, the Redskins look like they're about to turn a corner and go in the right direction. But yeah, with the Knicks, that's a dire situation. Let me tell you a little bit why I asked you that question, though, of what you meant by a bad owner. The reason that Man United fans do not like the Glazers is the way that they took over the team and the way they operate the team. So I don't know if you're familiar with that process. For those of you guys watching and who are not familiar, the way they took that organization over. Well, first of all, you got to backtrack and understand how these teams work in Europe. They're not part of they're not a franchise like U.S. sports teams are. The
Right.
league teams are franchises of the league. So basically, the Lakers belong to the NBA in part, as they do with the Buss family, or James Dolan and the NBA own the team together. The Premier League doesn't own anybody, right? They're just a catalyst or a facilitator for these independent businesses to take part in this, endeavor being the league. So it's an independent company, and they came in and they leveraged debt to take over this team. So they're taking all of this money out of the organization, and they're not putting it back into the club. For the longest time, we had Sir Alex Ferguson, and he was, with his excellence, papering over that. After a while, though, when he retired, everything just kind of fell apart, and we saw the ineptitude of that board and that team being run, like you said, like a business rather than a team. And the wheels kind of fell off for the next 6 or 7 years. We're starting to see some turnaround right now, but we still don't have any trust as a fan base in the ownership. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm coming from on that.
No, I get where you're coming from, and I'm with what you're saying, but I think it goes a long way. Look, the Lakers for a good part of the Kobe era were in disarray. Jimbo Buss and Mitch Cupcake certainly wasn't fitting the bill in LA. And so
to be fair, I think Mitch Kupchak got a lot more of the blame than he deserved in that situation.
I absolutely, and I agree with you, and I get that part. But that's where it comes from. If you have a big time franchise, the Giants are in disarray, the Jets are in disarray. When you're talking about big cities and their teams aren't doing well, it's a big problem for that fan base. If LA teams aren't doing well, thank God the Lakers and the Clippers, before this pandemic showed up, they're both relevant now. The Dodgers are relevant. The Angels are relevant in some sort of way. The two football teams, not so relevant. The hockey teams aren't relevant. Same thing in New York. I mean, if they don't have all their teams kind of set up well, the fan base is turns against you. And so at the end of the day, you need that owner to kind of steer the ship the correct way, spend the money the correct way. May have some luck, not draft, coach, whatever the case may be, personnel, and hope for the best. I mean, the New York did hire someone who they feel is very good, and hopefully that changes for them. But with the owners of Man U, they have steered that team into major kill mode. I mean, they've done everything wrong. I hate to say it, but I mean, I'm a Chelsea fan, and we always banter about Chelsea and Man U, whenever Man U is kind of run the show against Chelsea and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, as my owner is not that good either, but at least there's some sort of system in there. Something is moving. We've got young players that we're developing and so on and so forth. Man U's motto has always been purchasing the best player, and they haven't been doing it as well.
That's not true. That's not true. It hasn't always been purchasing the best player. So the motto was that we don't purchase Galacticos, the title that Real Madrid made famous. We made the Galacticos. You purchase young talent, you nurture that talent, and they become great. And we saw that with Marcus Rashford. We're going to see that with Anthony Martial, who's taking that leap. You see young Brandon Williams, young star in the making. It was supposed to be Paul Pogba, but that relationship went south. And I don't know if that's fixable. I don't know if that is an issue with him, probably his agent. But we'll see. We'll see. But we're kind of running on time here. So one thing we need to address is a little while. We're a little late here, but you and I are both huge Lakers fans, and we didn't get a chance to talk about Kobe and his untimely passing. And I know we wanted to make this positive, but we do got to kind of talk about it. But let's talk about Kobe in a positive light. This is we're trying to get people's minds off of everything that's going on in the world right now. Positivity, Dave. Talk about Kobe and what he's done for you or what effect he's had on you in a positive light.
Well, for 20 years of Kobe's career, he got to be in my home for about 3 hours, 3 to 4 days a week. He's a family member. For me, that's how I look at it. It still pains me to watch highlights of Kobe or things of Kobe. It's a tough situation because growing up, Kobe's 1 year older than me. So growing up and watching Kobe when he was 17 and 18 and all the way into, the end of his career, everything about Kobe is just phenomenal. Yes, the man had faults. Yes, the man made mistakes. Yes, he was a tough, teammate to have, but he was all about results. He was all about that Mamba mentality that everybody's been talking about. Kobe is just, you see the effect that he had. I mean, how he affected the world, how he affected the league, how he affected anything around him. It's amazing how much he truly had on the world. I mean, he was special. So to lose a man of this magnitude, it's so disheartening and so heartbreaking. And obviously I feel terrible for the rest of the victims that died in the crash with him. And certainly Vanessa and the kids. That was a very tough memorial to watch. I probably couldn't get through 2 minutes of it without actually bawling out. So, but Kobe was the household name. I have his jerseys at home, and the memories will always last. And it's still tough, even 2 months later after he's passed away. So, but Kobe brought a sense of understanding. If you truly want to be good at something, you got to go for it, and you got to work harder than anybody else. When you put in, when guys were putting in 2-3 hours in the gym, he was putting in 6, 9 even. He didn't care. Yes, it cost him a good portion of his family and his time with his family and so on and so forth. But the man was just so determined to get things done. And so he's sorely going to be missed. And I know Lakers Nation, Lakers fans, we miss him badly. We still chant his name during the games. We still, whenever we want to throw a piece of paper into the garbage, we scream out Kobe. So I mean, it's still ongoing, no matter what. I mean, you take a turnaround fade, you're thinking Kobe. I hate to say Jordan's the one that kind of put that together, but you're shooting a shot that doesn't seem like it makes any sense. You're pretty much saying Kobe. So he's very truly magic.
There's really not much to add to what you said. Kobe came in 96. That was actually my first year as a kid playing YMCA basketball. That was the beginning of my basketball journey, and we kind of went on those steps together. Even though he didn't know me, he didn't have a clue who I was. I knew all about him, and he had that same effect for a lot of kids in the LA area and all over the world. But one thing that you brought up and that will always have a lasting effect on me is that Mamba mentality. To love the journey more than the destination. That can't be understated, because when you adopt that mentality, like Kobe said, once you reach the destination, you are always ready for the next destination. You're never going to stagnate if you adopt that mentality of always wanting to be the best and loving the grind to get there. You see in society that is a very rare trait, that people just don't want to go above and beyond to do anything. Everyone wants to they want everything for free. They want to do the bare minimum. And if there's anything that personifies Kobe Bryant, it's just the opposite. That was the antithesis of Kobe Bryant. He knew that he was not going to get anything for free. He knew that he was going to have to work harder than everyone else, because he wasn't the tallest, the strongest, the biggest, the fastest, but he was definitely the most determined, like you said, and we saw that because of his love for the journey. Dave, I don't think I have anything to add to that, man. You got anything here before we go?
No, I wish everybody safe, and let's get through this together. The bad apples need to be good apples in this world, because that's what we need. It's a time for everybody to come together. The world's been a hectic place. God puts things in place so that we can deal with it, and deal with it in through His way. Whatever God you believe in, that's what it goes with. And so I think it's important that everybody stay safe, everybody work together, everybody help out each other, no matter what. It's gonna be a tough, trying time. I just got a notification on my phone that LA, which was where I live, will have an immediate shutdown until April the 19th, and that's gonna. I mean, this is March 19th, so we're talking about a month of shutdown. It affects jobs, affects businesses, affects lives. It affects a whole bunch of people. The biggest thing is to be as safe as you can. Come together as a community. Come together as a world. Let's get through this, and let's get this virus out of here, and then try to get a sense of normalcy after that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the rest of the country is not far behind. It's unfortunate that we've gotten here, but Dave, I hope you and I can probably get on here and do a few more episodes to keep.
Yeah,
folks
my
busy.
background might change though the next time, so.
I don't think anybody's gonna mind. My background, Dave. Look, I got a little bust of you crying every time I prove you wrong. Right behind me over here, you see that right there in white? That's you right here crying every time I prove you wrong. But yeah. And in case you guys were wondering, this is not my house behind me here. That's a green screen behind me. But but yeah, hopefully we can get on here and do a couple more shows and just do what we can to help everyone get their mind off of things. I know for us, this is getting our mind off of things where we just don't have to think about what's going on in the world. We can just talk about what we love. And hopefully you guys can get in on the conversation with us. Do subscribe so that whenever videos come out, you are the first to know about it. Hit the bell icon. Make sure that you comment and let us know if you agree with anything that we said. I know that this episode is kind of all over the place. We're talking about whatever. That's kind of what we wanted to do today. Just kind of, get the cobwebs out and have a little fun. But moving forward, it's going to be more of like a debate format where we have a single subject and we kind of debate that subject. It's going to be kind of time proof. Like I said earlier, we have a little bit of trouble kind of setting these up with our schedules. We don't do this full time. So we'll try to have some concepts where, or debates where if you listen to it a month after we post it, it's not old news. So that's kind of where we are with that. You can follow us on Instagram at Open Look Sports. Should be the same on Facebook. Could still be the Open Look Podcast. I'll post a link in the description below if you want to follow us on Facebook. And with that, my name is John Helene for David Hanna. This has been the Open Look. Thank you for joining us. We will see you.